So I've been told that I need to change up my intro a bit since it's generic and boring, so I'm going to go ahead and try to give that a shot right now if you don't mind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the premier Xenoblade Chronicles 2 channel on YouTube. Today I will be showing all of you exactly the steps that you need to take in order to make Elma the most broken blade in the game! So with that being said, let's begin. So I've known about her for quite a while now through data mines, and as a big fan of X, I was very excited to test her out and see how her abilities would work. And I must say, she does not disappoint. She's within the top 6 blades of the game if you ask me. So let's discuss what Elma can do first of all. Her skill tree has a lot of interesting and good abilities. Her level 1 special here is Sliding Slinger, one of the moves she had in X. It is a 6-hit move and probably the fastest level 1 special in the game, and it has this really strong bonus effect of doing more damage to higher level enemies. This is a great special for general use and chain attacks. 100 Shells is her level 2, and it increases damage by 150% from behind. This move does 14 hits and also hits everything in front of Elma. Back attack isn't really a great effect, and I'll explain that a bit more in a second. Violent Streak is her level 3 and is another great special that annuls guard, and I believe it hits 16 times. I'm not quite certain on that one, so forgive me if I am wrong. It has a small radius of AoE and it also pierces, allowing it to do quite a bit of damage. Her first actual ability is Overdrive, the special ability you could use in Xenoblade Chronicles X. It's not quite as busted as it was there, however, but it's still fun to use. The small summary of this is that it increases your damage, lowers art cooldowns, and reduces enemy break resistance, and all these effects continuously stack over the course of a fight. There's a bit more things to explain than that, so I'll probably devote like half the video to explaining more about it and when you'd want to use this. So let's move on to the next part. The next ability here, Crisis Catalyst, is a very good ability. 150% damage at max affinity alone is powerful, but she also gets 40% additive crit rate on top of that. This means that if she had a 30% crit rate before, it's now up to 70%. This is very good and allows her to continuously do a lot of damage, one of the best skills in the game for sure. Now her final ability is Background Noise. This ability increases damage 150% from behind. Now this sounds strong in theory, but in practice this isn't really that strong or useful. If you're controlling Elma and spamming arts, especially with Overdrive, you're gonna have aggro. That's just a fact. Your tanks are not gonna take aggro from you. If you have aggro, you can never be or stay behind an enemy. The only real use of this is either on an AI who can't really use it properly, and for chain attacks where you quickly run behind an enemy and chain attack. It has its uses, but it's not the best thing she's got for sure. So with that being said, the weapon I like to run on her is the Tachyon chip because it increases her critical damage by 25% at max affinity. And with the 40% crit she already has, she will have 84% crit rate, and with the extra damage, it will outshine Moon Matter or any other core chip on her easily. So for aux cores, you're going to want to run usually the prime damage boosting aux cores like Affinity Max Attack and Outdoor Attack. If you need something special like Accuracy or Fusion Combo Boost, don't be afraid to use Night Vision, Sunlight Eye, or Fusion Combo Up either. So when I control Elma, I like using her on Rex. Elma is a Twin Ring clone as usual. Rex has probably the best Twin Ring damage set in the game with low cooldowns, high ratios, and fast animations. Typically for accessories you're going to want to run the standard accessories that are pretty good. Avant-Garde keeps you healthy in extended fights and is probably essential with less iframe use for Overdrive, and Noise Dampener is pretty strong to keep her arts hurting quite a bit in Overdrive and just in general. Crimson Headband is another strong ability that helps a lot with her high critical hit rate, increasing her damage even further, and it is also multiplicative with other additive damage, so it's better than running something like an Abyss Mask or Noise Dampener. Or Abyss Mask or Enlightened Loincloth, I mean. You may also run a burst symbol for chain attack builds, or you even could run an Enlightened Loincloth or Abyss Mask if you just want the extra additive damage over something like the Avant-Garde medal if you really don't think you need the healing. Pouch items here are pretty standard desserts for faster recharge. I would recommend taking these even if you are using Overdrive just because they're just so useful to have and they'll just make sure you can always use an art at all times. Now with that being said, let's try to show off exactly what she can do. So a quick side note, I have to apologize that my screen is slightly zoomed in here. I changed some settings on my television and forgot to compensate in OBS, so my apologies on that. Hopefully it doesn't really affect the video too much. So the general strategy here is just going to be use Rex's 5 art cancels in a row and then probably use Violent Streak whenever you can. For the purpose of the video, I'll show off the other specials too. But typically that's going to be the best move to maximize the damage you get with Gravity, Black Abyss, and Hyper Graviton. and you can also get some good chain attack damage off of this. So the reason I'm not like instantly using Overdrive here is because you can't chain attack when you use Overdrive, and we kind of want to use chain attack for a situation like this just so we can make sure we have the invincibility frames. I'll try to show off what the difference is and when you'd want to use like each. Typically that's the main weakness of Overdrive, that you can't really use chain attacks and Overdrive at the same time. Now Elma is a Dark Blade, so you saw that I just resisted Doom. You pretty much always resist Doom when you're a Dark Blade. And that's really nice to have for a lot of these boss fights against like Carlos and the Curradils. So the 5 arts you want to use with Rex is going to be Dark Edge into Mystic Slice, into his other art, into Dark Edge, back into Mystic Slice. Right here I use a level 4 special, and it's pretty powerful too. It's a little bit slow though, so I typically don't like using it over the level 3. It also stops your allies from attacking, but it's useful as an invincibility frame if you need it. Overall, Elma's damage is really high even without Overdrive. Overdrive gives you kind of a low additive to start with, so it's not always something you have to worry about, and since you can always cancel 5 arts in a row, you don't have to worry about the reduced cooldown doing a ton for you anyway. So here's a chain attack. You can't do this with Overdrive, and you can see you can end up doing a lot of damage with it. I don't have the setup for this or burst symbols or anything either. I'm just trying to get rid of the orb so I can do some more damage here. And I also have Shulk just to perk the Awakening aspect, because Awakening is an annoying ability. So Elma's level 2 here, you'll notice that her first attacks aren't quite as powerful as her last attack here. The last hit of 100 shells is more powerful than all the other hits. And overall, chain attacks are probably still going to be the prime way you want to deal damage, even with Overdrive existing. I'll try to show off Elma's strength and chain attacks later and why you'd want to use that over Overdrive builds. But I'll also show off Overdrive later and why you'd want to use that, because it's pretty fun. So I'm scared of Wild Wave here, so I charge up my invincibility frame. I think Shulk's Vision activates anyway, but I go ahead and use the level 4, I think, anyway, just because I can. So one interesting thing that's not really related to the guide about Carlos is that when he enrages, he becomes Dark Weak, and he takes a lot of additional damage to Dark types, and you're going to see Elma just kind of destroy this man now with her art damage and special damage. One of her arts, Trick Shot, that one with cancel attack, is really powerful, because it'll do cancel damage, and it just does a lot of damage every time you hit with it, and it can do like upwards of 400,000 against any enemy easily. It's probably the best art she has, but it's on a slightly higher cooldown than the other things, so that's the one weakness of it. Dark Edge and Mystic Slice are interesting because they kind of conflict with each other by being back attack and side attack, and you don't typically want to be moving a lot when you're spamming arts. So overall, Elma's got some really strong specials, really strong arts, really strong abilities to just kill bosses at a really fast pace. This was normal mode, and I've kind of gone through this boss in pretty quick fashion. He dies after this, I'm nearly certain. So next after this, I'm going to show off just how powerful Elma can be in chain attacks. So because of her powerful specials and high hit counts, Elma has a lot of damage in chain attacks, which is ironic considering you can't chain attack and Overdrive at the same time. Let me just show you an example here. So like I said, her level 1 hits 6 times, her level 2 14 times, and her level 3 16 times, I believe. And with the right fusion combo setups, you can easily damage cap every hit. As you saw right there, that was 6 quick damage caps of Sliding Slinger. And we can even damage cap every hit of 100 shells, which I'll show off in a second. Crossset is used as support here because of her fusion combo bonus and the fact that Volcano is a really powerful effect for these. So it damage caps every hit that doesn't get blocked, which is really powerful. And her level 3 does almost just as good. Because of how powerful her specials are in chain attacks, it can almost be counterproductive to use Overdrive on normal mode, making it probably more useful in like a harder environment where chain attack is nerfed, or party meter is even nerfed. But you still need party meter to activate Overdrive. So here's Violent Streak. It doesn't quite damage cap everything, but it gets pretty close, and it does a lot of damage over the course of all its hits. I don't quite kill Ken here, but I bring him down extremely low, as you can see, and if I would have probably prepared a little bit more for this specific setup, with Crossset doing more damage, I probably would have easily killed him. Now, let's talk about Overdrive. So, upon activation of Overdrive, you gain a 25% damage additive. I know it'll say 125% to the side, but it starts off at 25%, and this stacks up all the way to 500% total. Your recharge is you get an extra 50% recharge on your arts, and this will increase up to like 250%, I believe. and you get reduced break resistance of enemy that starts at 20% reduced break resistance and stacks all the way up to 70%. So the counter increases, and as such all your effects increase every time you use an art, of attack, or a special. Every hit of a special increases it by 5, so this means that using higher hit specials is more valuable, and using AoE specials in mob fights is more valuable as well. Every hit of an art only increases the counter by 1. This effect is party-wide, so it affects every single part of the damage for the entire party, which is pretty nice. You don't even have to control Elma to use it, which can actually be pretty useful as well. Now the thing to keep in mind is that the extra damage is additive, so on a character like Tora or Elma that already has pretty high additives, you won't notice major damage increases until you get to the higher count numbers, and it can take a while to get there. The only reason my count's building this quickly is because I have both Elma and Cosmos, and they increase the counter a ton with their level 3s, both hitting 16 times. Overall, Overdrive can be fun, and when you get it fully stacked, you probably only need like 1 dessert, but I usually running 2 anyway. As you can see, I can cancel my arts infinitely if I so choose now, which is pretty nice. And I constantly use my level 3s to continue stacking Overdrive here with Elma. That's probably her best special for stacking it. 100 shells also hits 14 times, so you could probably use that as well. So like I said, it's definitely been nerfed a bit since X. The count in X used to be 100, and you could stack it even quicker than you can now. It's still a really interesting and cool ability, and you can reach some really silly damage numbers, but it's going to be slower than a lot of other methods for a lot of the things you can do. Another weakness of it is that you don't really have access to invincibility frame of chain attacks anymore, which can be kind of an issue. But maybe you can just keep driver combo locking with the reduced enemy resistance. So even with Elma and Cosmos here, it still takes me like about 2 minutes or so to get to max count, which just shows how long it can take to finally hit the really strong damage numbers. And that's going to be probably the main weakness of it, the fact that the count kind of goes up really slow. And the damage increase isn't really that noticeable until you get to the higher count numbers. For example, Dagus, his Kaiser Zone passive is 120% added to the entire party. In order to match that with Elma, you have to reach a counter of 200, which can be pretty difficult unless you have the right setups for it, but it's still not too hard, I guess, if you're controlling Elma directly. I finally reached max here, so you'll see damage is multiplied by 600%. This is just a 500% additive, it doesn't count the initial 100%. Recharge is at 300%, which means I can easily cancel all my arts together. And break resistance is at -70, or it reduced his break resistance by 70%. Which means every time Tora with his Master Scope and Speedy Sword uses a break, he'll just instantly break him like no matter what. And this can be very useful if you got the right setups. Maybe you want a driver combo log, maybe you want to set up a powerful damage over time effect. So that's probably going to be the main use of her, probably the Bringer of Chaos fights and stuff like that. The main issue is going to be getting party leader for those, but I'm sure if you have some setups tailored to getting it really quickly, you can end up getting really fast kills. So the 500% additive is really valuable on characters without high additives when you get it stacked up, and you can end up doing some pretty crazy damage with them if you can get it stacked. Here's an example of how strong AoE can be. You see I just got over 100 just by using level 2 with Mithra there that only hits 6 times. Overall, Overdrive is a fun and really cool ability. It's not going to be the absolute most broken thing ever just because getting to the maximum count takes a really long time, and it's not always going to be the most optimal thing in many fights. But it's a very cool ability to have for Elma for sure, and it's really fun to use. Perhaps the one really interesting use of it is that you don't even have to keep Elma active in the party to use it. It'll remain active even if you swap off of Elma. So you could potentially bring Elma and then swap to a different blade and use some different strategies there. Like I said, you're limited to not being able to use chain attacks, but that's something that you could still keep in mind and use for different strategies for sure. So at max Overdrive, you can see my Mithra's kind of hitting this totem pretty hard, which is not really typical because he has a lot of reduction damage, and I can still pretty easily put on the hurt on him and do a ton of damage. I'm calling a totem him now, but you know, still. Like I said, you don't have to be controlling Elma to use Overdrive, and you just keep it refreshed by doing it the same way as you would as long as Elma is active in the party. It's a solid support ability that has a lot of uses, and it can make some fights quite a bit easier by increasing your damage to pretty insane levels. It's really beneficial for characters that like spamming arts a lot as long as you can get the counter, like maybe Eye of Shining Justice Seek. And overall, it makes Elma really useful. Elma as a whole is really powerful thanks to the diversity that she can have, going for some powerful chain attack damage, or the fact that she can use Overdrive for the party to increase everything and do a bunch of damage there. She has good support capability and great DPS on her own single target, probably the third highest in the game after Fiora and Pandoria and maybe Tora. She's a really strong blade and faithful to the overall feel of X. I hope you all will enjoy using this character as I have. And remember, to build meter fast or count fast for Overdrive, you want to spam AoE specials on mobs and you want to spam high hit count specials. That's going to be your best bet. That should about cover it for this guide. I hope you guys have learned something useful. So to summarize, Elma is a really solid blade who is useful for a lot of different team options and strategies and increases the overall diversity of combat within the game. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and look forward to more of my videos and projects in the coming weeks and for Golden Country. I will likely release a guide for Corvin tomorrow, so please look forward to that. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and all that good stuff. So with that being said, thank you guys all so much for watching and have a wonderful day.